Good evening, everybody. Or good afternoon, depending on what part of the country where you reside. I would like to welcome everybody to this presentation of the American College of Dentists entitled Help Is Right Around the Corner, Extending a Dental Hand to Neighbors in Need. As we have seen over the last year or two, we have lots of neighbors who are in need of one way or the other, and things seem to be, at this point, still a little bit topsy-turvy in the country. But for those of us who've been fortunate to be blessed to be dentists and to be practicing and to still be doing pretty well, I think what we'd like to do tonight is use our group of illustrious panelists to talk about what the possibilities are in the U.S. The college spends a lot of time talking about international volunteer possibilities, but I think it's time that we focus on projects, possibilities in the U.S. So certainly want to welcome all you ICD fellows, and our three guests have Doctors Dickinson, Dr. Freed, and Dr. Nichols, who will be introduced as we go along. Each of them has a vast wealth of experience, both in the U.S. and overseas, but tonight we will be focusing more on their activities in the U.S. A few housekeeping notes. Use the chat function to ask questions. I will be the one controlling the questions, but just type in the chat, and then either, depending on how the flow of the conversation goes, we'll ask the questions as we go, or we'll save them till the end of each presentation. For this webinar this evening is eligible for CE credit, but of course you have to stay to the end. So please hang on there, and there'll be a link given at the end of the presentation. So I am personally very excited to have these three gents as part of the panel. As I was joking about previously, I only had to make 3 phone calls because each of them has had many years of service to the college, and they were more than happy to share some of their experiences with all of us. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first presenter. Dr. Terry Dickinson was executive director of the Virginia Dental Association, and I think I will say his major claim to fame, perhaps, I don't know how he would put it, but he is the founder of the Mission of Mercy dental projects. Many of us are familiar with the MOM projects. A lot of us have participated in MOM projects, and I think all of us owe tip of the hat, scaler, handpiece, whatever, to Dr. Dickinson for having the vision to bring this to fruition. He received his DDS from the University of Texas branch at Houston, served 2 years in the U.S. Air Force as a dental officer, and received the Air Force Commendation Medal for his contributions supporting the mission of the Air Force Dental Corps. He then entered private practice in Houston, Texas, became involved with organized dentistry, and served all of the officer positions of the Greater Houston Dental Society, including being president in 1981. After 30 years of private practice, he was hired to serve as executive director of the Virginia Dental Association in 1999 and served in that position until 2019. As many of us have known this name for years, I had the great fortune of meeting Dr. Dickinson for the first time in Wise, Virginia, at a Mission of Mercy project when I was working in Bluefield College to try and start a dental school in Appalachia. So after arriving in Virginia, he came up with the idea for the nationally known Mission of Mercy project and was dental project manager of the Katrina MOM project in New Orleans. In 2010, the ADA honored Terry with its Humanitarian Award. In 2009, he was honored to receive the National Governors Association Distinguished Service Award for a private citizen. And the ICD honored Terry with its Humanitarian Award in 2016. A true Texas gentleman who has done lots for organized dentistry, lots for the college, and certainly lots for our fellow humans. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Terry Dickinson.
Well, it certainly is a pleasure for me to be able to spend some time with you, with some of my good friends here. Um, Truly help to identify the meaning of the word servant. It's kind of a little bit of a background. I guess we all are in search of that why in our lives. Why are we where we are? What's the why of what we're supposed to do and be doing on this earth? And I had a very successful practice for a number of years, and I had all the parts of a life I thought were pretty amazing. I had a great practice, a great staff, financially successful, beautiful home, all the parts that we so often just when we describe happiness and what we're where we are in our lives. But in 1995, I made the statement that, I just don't think I want to be doing what I'm doing, be a clinical dentist. I'd love to stay in the field of dentistry, but I really felt like there was something else in that why part of my life, and that service part of my life, and that purpose in my life. And
Dr. Dickinson, excuse me 1 second, please.
yes,
We got a message. Did you guys see that message? Somebody sent in that they can't hear anything. Have you guys seen that? Kylie, have you seen that? Just hang on 1 second. Make sure
all
that
right.
the people can hear. Okay.
Yeah, I do have, I'm checking it from 3 devices and I can hear it on all 3. So I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. So it may be, most people are saying they can hear, so it must be that one individual needs to check. Excuse me for interrupting. I just want to make
no,
sure that they could hear.
Yeah, no problem. I see the chat that Risa said she can hear fine, so it may
Okay.
be something with the personal computer.
Okay.
So getting back to purpose. So in 1995, I really kind of went on a search for what the purpose of my life should be. What am I supposed to be doing? What do I need to fill that bucket in my heart, my soul, that would I would know that that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So I went on search for that why of my life, and what my purpose is on my short time on this earth. And so fortunately, I got asked to be the executive director of the Virginia Dental Association. So I arrived here in July of 1999, having no idea really what executive director of a dental association did, but I learned rather quickly. But we had this opportunity, in the previous slide showed a lady, Sister Bernie, who had much to do with service down in the Appalachia area of Southwest Virginia. She's an amazing lady. She's still active, still works. She was there with our 20th anniversary several years ago. And she really felt like strongly about bringing medical and dental care to that part of the state, the coal fields, very remote and rural areas of the state, and really wanted to do something. And I thought, really, we could do that. We're a great dental association, and we could, I thought, well, certainly we can get some people, some dentists to go down there and do something to help them with the dental. And I'll never forget the first meeting I had in Southwest Virginia, going down there and meeting a guy that was the head of remote area medical. And I remember the conversation when I said, well, we can certainly take charge of the dental portion of it. And he said, well, how many dentists do you think you can get? I said, well, I have no idea. I've never done this before, but I would think, gosh, 30, 40 dentists. He said, well, a lot of dentists say that they can do that, but they don't really come and show up at the right time. And I said, well, I've never done it, but I'm willing to give it a try. And so I sat around thinking about it and what our part should be. And that's when I came up with the idea for the Missions of Mercy, which it was shortened to the Mom Project. And so I kind of stood there and I thought to myself, when that hit me, I said, maybe that's maybe that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Maybe what I've been looking for is to give something back for the many gifts that I've received in my life. Maybe this is what the why is. Maybe this is the purpose and the meaning that I've been searching for. And I really, have a strong faith and I really felt like God just point me in the right direction, and I'll do my best. I will absolutely do my best. And so then I thought back on it, and my philosophy is, I just really feel like there are no accidents with our time on this earth, that we're in places and meeting people that we're supposed to meet, and places that we're supposed to be in, and opportunities that we're supposed to be able to be open to and listen to the voice within, and really pay attention to that. And so I thought, maybe that's where I'm supposed to be. And I felt so fortunate, so blessed that I had an opportunity to discover that, for myself. And that's just for me, and it's not necessarily for anyone else. But I felt like if I do nothing more than this, there's no reason why I can walk away and say, I did what I was supposed to do. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And this is the why of my life. And so out of that search, and it took 5 years to get to that point, which can be very, discouraging for anybody, that I'd found something that I could really look to about this service thing, that I thought that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And so Sister Bernie really is a model for that, with service and guidance from above. And so I've met so many wonderful people, both volunteers and patients. I always, and I think so many of us walk away from these projects thinking, a lot of people think we've given so much, and we have given a lot. But I think we all walk away feeling like that, the gift was given to us. It's our gift that we got from these people that we help serve. And again, it's why are we here? What are we supposed to be doing? That we all have to answer that question at some point in our lives, and make sure that we answer that question, to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and no matter what it is. And I always tell people, I say, you don't have to have a DDS or an RDH or RDA or DA after your name. You don't have to have anything after your name. You just have to have a heart of service and a mercy. And so I really feel fortunate that I found that why, and I found that place that I'm supposed to be, and what I'm supposed to be doing, besides running a dental association and doing all the things that come with that I found this special place that I can serve him and all these people that really need our help. So this is I know it's a long story, but really kind of explains why I'm where I am. That I'm sitting in front of you tonight, in gratitude that I have an opportunity to share with you my story. And everybody has a story, and you must learn to tell that story. And tell people. Don't be afraid to tell people about yourself and really why you're here and what you really believe in and how that helps you. Again, it's about there are no accidents. I'm here because I'm supposed to be here. And it's just really a blessing for me. And I always feel like I get the gift. So let's see the next slide, please. You'll have to put up with me on these slides, but and one more, please. This is attributed to several people. One of them is Muhammad Ali. Shirley Chisholm is another one. I don't really know where and who is the original person, but I mean, it really says it so well. Service is the rent we pay for the room we take up on this earth. I just love that saying, is that that's what we're supposed to be doing. You know, it's great that we're making a great living and being able to travel and do so many things while we're here. But part of that obligation and responsibility, in my opinion, is to provide service to our fellow man. And so we all each have to decide that in some way, in some fashion. So next. I love this picture. I mean, when you look at it, it just captures so much. This is one of the, let's say, survivors of Katrina. We took a big dental team in there after Katrina and put on, I don't know, I think I was there 9 or 10 days. You have to remember, not much electricity, blue tarps everywhere. You know, we were lucky to find a place to stay and a restaurant to eat in, but amazing 9 or 10 days that we spent there helping people like this. And you'll notice that this young lady and her child are covered by a blanket. Well, guess where that blanket came from? It was a donation, thousands of these blankets from Albania that were shipped to the United States and then to New Orleans to give out to people that just didn't have much left after Katrina. And so this is the population that we worked with. We were in the zoo. We set up a big dental medical clinic there in the zoo because it had the power that was needed to be able to put on that program. And like I say, it was an amazing 9 days and a lot of smiling faces like that. They're so glad to have someone care about them and bring stuff to them and take care of their dental needs, because there was not much hope in that community. So next. So that's one of our big trucks that we have that we transport all our equipment. And then I'm going to show you in a little bit some of the slides of when we first started this project, and it certainly wasn't in a truck like that. But we're fortunate to be able to have funds to be able to purchase 2 big trucks like this, and to be able to, because we have a lot. I mean, we can set up a 50-chair dental clinic anywhere in the state in 24 hours using our model. And so because it does take a lot to be able to do that. So we started very small. So next. So we started, I had the idea in October of 1999, and we did our first project in July of 2000 in conjunction with the group out of Tennessee, RAM. And go ahead and do the next slide, Kylie. Yeah. So here's some of the things that we dealt with. Hypertension, you know, it's 50% in the population that we see. Blood sugars like I've never seen before in my life. But 20% were undiagnosed. Their primary care physician is the emergency room. So if they get care, that's where it's going to be. 70% of them have BMIs over 25. Their drink of choice, their food of choice, highly processed foods. And Mountain Dew was a popular drink down in the mountains. People say, well, why don't they just buy water? I said, well, they can, some people do, but you have to realize also it's an economic choice that buying a 6-pack or 24-pack of Mountain Dew is cheaper than buying the equivalent amount of water. And so it's bought on an economic, as is processed food. It's much cheaper than healthy food. One of the reporters that was there doing a story about healthcare in the United States was really made the comment about the obesity that we were seeing in that population. I said, just go to Walmart tomorrow and follow them around in the aisles, and you'll see that what they're buying and what they're buying for drinking and the food that they're buying, it lends itself to obesity. And it's, again, it's an economic issue more so than I just want to be like that. And it's as it says, it's a downward spiral. It just gets worse and worse and worse. It's not a simple solution. It's very complex and complicated. And these are choices that, unless you experience that, you just have little or no understanding of why they do what they do. Next. So this is what greeted us in July of 2000. I had been calling down there to Sister Bernie about every week, because I started getting this feeling in my stomach that, what if I take these people down there, these volunteers, and there's nobody to treat? They'll never want to volunteer again, or, do anything of my suggestion. So I'd call every week and ask Sister Bernie, well, what are you doing to get the word out? She said, well, put it out to school, I put it out to the library or whatever. And I'd call back in a week and say, well, Sister Bernie, what have you done this week? Well, we've gone up in the holler and we put it in the post office, we put it in Walmart or whatever. So every week I'd be calling her because I was afraid we wouldn't have enough patients to take care of. And my volunteers would be, because it's from Richmond, it's about a 6-hour drive. So, and then if you go further east to the beach area, it's even, it's another 2 hours. So for some of our volunteers, it could be an 8-hour drive. So I was really careful about making sure that we would have patients. And she said, I think we've got it covered, Dr. Dickinson. I think we're going to have plenty of patients. So we, the setup we had was in a airplane hangar. This is the airport, because that was the place that we were able to get. You can see a tent in the background there, and you see this line of patients. And very foggy that morning. And when we drove out there about 6 o'clock in the morning, the traffic just stopped. So we were in gridlock in the remote rural area of Wise, Virginia. And they'd probably never seen anything like this before, the number of people out there. But I could barely see the line because of the fog. And the closer I got to the airport, the more people I saw in these immense lines. And then out of the fog, I see Sister Bernie walking toward me. And she said, well, Dr. Dickinson, is that enough? I said, well, it sure looks like it's enough. Well, it was so much of enough that we've turned away about 1,000 people that first day. And so over the 2.5 days, we did a little more than 700 patients that we provided care for. Now think about this. The planes were pulled out of the hangar. No doors on the hangar, just an open hangar. And we moved our sort of rudimentary dental equipment in there. That was the old big chairs that had to be transported. We didn't have much of the portable stuff that we have today. And so those big old chairs, and we use those, and anything we could see, regular chairs or whatever, it was pretty basic. And no x-rays, which really created a little bit of a stress for our dentist because we're just not used to working without seeing what we were doing, but we just didn't have that capability to do that. So it was quite an experience. So next slide. So here's that line that disappears into the background. It just went on and on and on. Okay, next. Somebody asked me, I helped, that's Stan Brock. He was the head of remote area medical, amazing person, just an amazing person, the vision he saw in giving medical care to these areas. He did so much to get that going. Next. I was asked to, not only David is going to speak in a little bit, but to Kansas. They came down and spent some time with us at a project and said, would you come to Kansas and help us do our first one? I said, well, sure. And then the night before we were supposed to start the project, they were talking about a blizzard because this was in February. And they said, do you think the people are going to show up? And I said, you know, in the number of years that I've done this, I've never seen anything stop them from doing that. They've always come. So this is the picture when we came up that morning to start that project. I mean, little babies wrapped in blankets. I mean, you could hardly see that snow was coming down so hard and fast. So people, that shows you the desperate need people have for dental care. And so I'm always amazed at how much care is still out there. And we've been doing this for 22 years. Next. Let's go to the next one. I think, okay, and keep going. One more, please, Connie. So what is it? And what it isn't? And next. So these are all, I mean, this is the regular stuff we do. You know, we really didn't do, we did very little prosthodontic, but mostly restorative oral surgery. We added endo. So we really pretty much can do anything. We have digital radiographs. We've actually done crowns, you know, using the crown, the one-day crown systems out there. So we pretty much now can do anything that can be done in the dental office. And we use the Nomads for our radiographs. And so we're pretty, sterilization and all the other stuff that you would do in your dental office is certainly adhered to. So next. So really, you know, when you get down to it, it's not about the care. Next. It's really all about the caring. And of course, we do a lot of dentistry. We've seen I guess we're on our 22nd year. This is our 22nd year of doing the MOM project, though we missed 2 years of that 22 years because of COVID. We will be back in WISE 2 months to be there for our 23rd, or actually the 21st time. Every time that I go, I never forget about this. It's really, you know, it's about caring for people that really struggle in their own lives. And until you hear their story, you just don't know. You don't have an idea of this, the suffering and the problems they have of having one car for 2 or 3 families and not being able to depend on a ride somewhere, but good people. And it always reminds me of how blessed I am in my life. And so it just, I mean, that's what it's about, really. It's not the dentistry. It's all about the caring. So next. So the intangibles, next, Kylie. So what about the volunteers? You know, what about us that are out there doing these projects? Next. And these are some of the things that people that have been volunteered, you know, I mean, Bill says it so well. It's this connectiveness we have with each other and the people that come to us for service. And next. Thank you for the opportunity to give back. You know, that's what it's about. It's having that opportunity to give back. So I ask all of you, if you haven't done a mom project or gone, you know, Honduras or Dominican or wherever you have that opportunity, I don't care who you are. You have that within you to give whatever gifts you have. Like I say, you don't need anything after your name to have that gift, to be able to share that, because it's really not a gift until you share it. And so another great thing about the Mom Project is the ability to share the gifts that God has given you. Never miss that opportunity to give something back. Next. So what is it when you come down to it? What is it all about? Next. And we're a dealer in hope. That's what we are. Because people have tell us so many things on any of these projects about, you know, do I have to pay anything? Was this going to cost anything? That it's not going to cost a thing. And their words are so powerful. We've never had anybody come and help us. Thank you for coming. We had no idea it would be like this. And so many times, you know, people come into your practice every day saying things like they say, probably not too much. And so we bring them that hope that they're often without, that they don't have, that they don't expect, that's not in their dreams. So next. So the message, you're choosing service over self-interest, leading by example, building hope in populations that have none, creating a better world and living the golden dream. Next. So the message is each of us has a responsibility to create a better future and a better world for those that are less fortunate than us. And that world that we create will be a world that will be a good place for our children and grandchildren to grow. And I think, I'm not sure, but I may be out of time. Where are we on our time, Frank?
No, you're good. You've got a few more minutes.
Okay.
You got 7 minutes.
I'm sorry.
7.
So, okay. Next slide, Kylie. So all of us have these strengths to share. The challenge lies in creating vehicles that enable diverse individuals to do so. And next, please, Kylie. So Mom Creates, it's not about, like I say, it's not about the dentistry, but it's an opportunity that allows us to share the gifts that we have, to be part of a volunteer organization that's mission is service. The mission is giving back. Next slide, please. So we found the true value in volunteerism. It created a whole new place for people to gather with this one thing in mind, this service thing. To give back to those that simply don't have what we have. And what an opportunity that gives us. So the Mom Project and all of these volunteer organizations, it's not so much about what you actually do, it's what you're giving of yourself and what they're receiving, because we truly get the gift of this. So next. So volunteers will want to invest their time and energy in things that matter and bring meaning and purpose into their lives. They will be in search of ways to affirm the spirit, to create a life that has both purpose and possibility, a life that has hope. And next. So it's all about making a difference, finding your mission, defining a legacy, and paying it forward. So each of you out there in the audience have that opportunity. And I know so many of you that have been part of the Mom Experience and a number of other organizations which do service work. And what I ask you is turn around and look at your neighbors and because it's in their heart and somebody needs to ask them sometimes, come with me to one of these projects. It will change your life. I mean, I've known so many instances of kids of dentists that wanted nothing to do with dentistry. Nothing. They don't want anything to do with all the blood and all that stuff. But I bet you that I could name 10 kids of dentists that didn't want anything to do with dentistry and now are in dental school or have graduated already because of their experience at the Mom Project. And so many have thanked me for allowing them to bring their kids to volunteer. And all I say is, look, if you're willing to come and do anything that's asked of you to help, you are welcome to come. Because they learn something about the other side of life that is often invisible. But the people in some of these rural areas don't think anybody else sees them. They think they're invisible because nobody comes to help them. So we bring light into their lives. We bring hope into their lives. Be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dickinson. I really appreciate this. And fortunately, I think we've got a couple of minutes and there are no questions, but I am not giving a formal presentation tonight, but as the moderator, I get to chime in when I wish. And so the first thing I want to say is Terry and I have never sat on a program together, but I think we have stolen each other's slides because basically what we talk about, he talks about dealers in hope, and I tell the students who come to the Dominican with us, I said, what are we selling? We're not doing dentistry, we're selling hope. And I'll say that an experience I had is a word in Spanish called los olvidados, or the forgotten ones. And we got a letter from a mission we worked in over by Haiti and said, we know that because the dentists come back every year, that God has not forgotten us.
Absolutely.
And I think that is really part of the message to be garnered. I want to just say about the three panelists, they are basically the pioneers. And I will include myself as a pioneer because those of us who started doing this stuff, and I'm going on my 40th anniversary trip in 4 weeks back to the Dominican. But when we started this, there was no template. There was no, as Dr. Dickinson said, I didn't know what we were doing. We had no idea what was going to happen. But by the hand of God, and I always talk about the hand of God, and he talks about it a little bit differently, but it's the same idea. For those of you, and I'm speaking out to those of you who are listening who have never done this, please find a project. There are projects all over the place. There are resources all over the place to learn how to do these kinds of things. And I encourage you to do it while you're young. I was lucky. I started doing this stuff 2 years out of dental school. And, I didn't know what I was doing in 1982, but here I am, 2022, and we figured out a little bit of it. So just keep that in mind. For those of you who are younger and say, well, I can't. Yes, you can. You can make it happen. It all works out. So having said that, let us move on to our next panelist, one of the other pioneers. And this is Dr. Dan Freed. Okay, here we go. Dr. Dan Freed received his AB in Biological Sciences from Indiana University in 1972, received his Doctor of Dental Surgery degree from Indiana University School of Dentistry in 1975, a Hoosier through and through. He was awarded and completed his general practice residency at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi in June of 1976. He then served as chief of dental operations at Baudette Air Force Station, Baudette, Minnesota, and Finley Air Force Base in Finley, North Dakota. Since 1978, he's had a comprehensive dental practice in LaPorte, Indiana. And All of the fellows, please, just a round of applause for Dan, who has stepped up to do all kinds of things in the college and is our 2022 president-elect of the ICD USA section and will serve as our president next year. His passion is care for veterans, and it inspired him to develop and lead many projects entitled Operation Stand Down, and he'll talk about that today. And if I just may say, veterans are all over the place. I live in Eastern North Carolina, and there are veterans everywhere here. And many of these veterans, along with others, are truly forgotten. Lots of things have happened to these folks, in service to the rest of us. And I think it's something that everybody needs to open their hearts and perhaps their practices to serve. Without further ado, Dr. Freed.
Well, thank you, Frank, for the kind introduction. Terry, you're a very tough act to follow. You've really set the bar pretty high, but I'm going to try to come in at least close to you. When I opened my dental practice in 1978, I just wanted to be a member. I joined the ADA and the local dental association. I just wanted to be a good member, go to meetings and participate. And within a couple of years, I found myself on the local dental council. And then later on, I became active in the state dental association, went through chairs. I was on the volunteerism humanitarian committee for several years. And then I went through the chairs, became president, now passed. I never had any idea I would become active in dental activities like this or politics, but it's been a great ride. Now I'm the president-elect of the International College. It's a giant honor, and I'm just proud to serve. Tonight, I'm going to talk to you about Operation Stand Down, a really close program to my heart. I'm going to tell you how I came about the idea to start it, how to start one in your own community, results that I found from doing it, and I've provided a manual for you at the end of the presentation. You can get it from the ICD website, or you can text me or email me, and I'll be glad to work with you. So Operation Stand Down. I found in my own practice veterans who did not have the money to complete the dentistry they needed. If they needed 3 restorations, they could maybe afford 1. If they needed a crown, that was pretty much out of bounds. So I started taking care of them in my own practice, just making them part of my fold. I came up with the idea to organize a way that we could bring veterans in, underserved veterans, and screen them, and basically share the work with other dentists in the community. I stood up, I pitched this idea to several dental leaders in the state. I asked my veteran service order officer in town. All of them said, hey, that's a good idea. Why don't you give it a shot? So I went to a county dental meeting. I stood up. I talked to the dentists in the room about giving back, about taking care of veterans who have not been treated. And like you probably expect, I received a lot of comments and said, we all do quite a bit of charity work. We are all overburdened with stuff like that. Why would we want to do this project just because you're asking us? And after about 5 more minutes of discussion, I had 22 out of the 23 dentists in the room signed up, and I was off to the races. So the thing I presented to them is that I will not give you more than 10 patients to take care of. You're going to provide prophy. You're going to give restorations and extractions at no charge. If the patients need a denture or partial denture, well, then you're going to need to work that out with them if you guys click. What I found is that some of my dentists have given these patients a dental home. Matter of fact, most of them that I do today are getting a dental home at the dentist that they were assigned to. Next slide. So I recruited a lot of volunteers. I recruited 22 dentists for the first time. I recruited 40 volunteers to run the program at the screening day. We meet on a Saturday morning at 7 o'clock, and we screen patients from 7 till 1. And within that period of time, we figure we can see 100 veterans. I have 5 dentists doing the screening. If I have a lot of dentists wanting to help with screening, we use 5, and then at 2.5 hours, we split, and the other 5 step up to the plate. The first time out, we did all the screening and all the health histories and all the documents and all the x-rays on site. And go ahead, next slide. The way we found patients is we created Operation Stand Down posters, and we placed them in all the veterans areas in the county, which we have 20 VFWs and Legions within our county. I also placed some in the back of churches, and I talked to elected officials about this project. I found my veteran service officer made half the appointments for me, just because he'd be sitting there talking with a veteran, and he'd say, "Hey, have you seen a dentist lately?" And say, "Hey, these guys have got this program starting in November. Why don't you sign up? And it's going to be free. There's no obligation to you." And so George he did a great service. Matter of fact, he signed himself up and went through the program just to see what it was all about. So the next time he could talk from a personal experience. Anyway, I got all the information, all the folders, all the posters, snacks for the patients, snacks for the workers, banners, anything I needed donated by the local health foundation. So that was, raising money is not hard for me. I only need maybe $500–600 to make this whole thing work. Next slide. So here you see my staff out in front of my clinic, and you see my group of screening dentists for the last one we just did probably 2 years ago. We normally do a stand down in LaPorte about every 2 years. I have stand downs in Gary and in South Bend and Indianapolis within Indiana, at least the ones I know about. We've treated about 2,500 patients. If you estimate the value of those patients at about $2,000 throughout the state, we've provided about $5 million worth of free care. The patients are so receptive and so appreciative, but like Terry said, the patient who's giving the service receives more value or more satisfaction than the patients. And we've bonded with these veterans. It's amazing the stories they have to tell and the friendships we've made. Next slide. So in the beginning, we had patients fill out the health history. I always had somebody help them with it because I know that some people can't hear well or read well. So we tried to help them. As we worked them through the clinic, we provided an escort. We called them the guardian angels because they were taking them through a process where they were going to be cared for. I put a color guard, usually from the VFW, at this door. We had a motorcycle group that was a veteran with all veterans that would escort any veteran back from the airport when we had a fallen soldier come back home. Anyway, the guardian angels were just fantastic as far as guiding them through the clinic, making sure they didn't get lost. The first time out, we used the hospital's clinic. I was on a committee of dentists who donated money and helped build a welfare clinic or an indigent clinic for people in the community, actually for the whole county. I was able to use their clinic for the first 2 outings, but then after the hospital sold it, I was scratching for some place to run Operation Stand Down. So one of my good friends offered his clinic the first time out, and then subsequently I've used my clinic. Both of us have a good 5-chair clinic where we can do a lot of screening, and 100 veterans is kind of a magic number for me. When I go to the universities, I can screen out of 20 chairs, so I can see a couple hundred patients when I go to either university clinic. Our dean at Indiana has offered me or allowed me to use any of the regional campuses that provide hygiene and dental assistant education. So that's really opened up a large door for me. Since then, we've changed deans, but I think our new dean is very receptive to our process. Next slide. So again, we bonded really well with these patients. Sometimes they're sitting in the room talking to each other. Some of them hang around afterwards and share stories with other veterans. I've become very close with the veterans I've treated. I've received multiple newspaper articles about what we've done. You know, I came down to thinking about, well, if I don't step up and organize something, who's going to do it? These veterans are going to continue to need, but the service isn't going to be built. So I was really proud to start this project. Next slide. So the next couple of slides show just the screening in process. I always had a note taker or a recorder. I had the escort with us as far as the patient, the guardian angel. We had a doctor and a patient. We had a panoramic x-ray on everybody, complete health history, and then all the disclaimers and waivers were reviewed by our hospital attorney. So I feel like everything I'm giving you in my manual is been cleared. Next slide. And we had 5 dentists on the staff the first time out. Here's just another one. Go ahead. There's a happy team. These veterans really appreciated all of our care. And every time we saw a veteran, as we finished our exam, we said, "Thank you for your service." And the veterans would all respond, "It was an honor to serve," or "It was our honor." And so it was like, "And thank you for your help." And so it's like the receiving end got a benefit, but us as the providers, we experienced a better feeling or more value. Next slide. So the statistics on our very first time out, I saw 88 patients between age 28 and 88. You can see the ranges as far as ages and their ethnic group. I thought if I'm ever going to present this to a political group, I need to have some statistics, because going to the State House, they want to see numbers. Next slide. So in the statistics, the Army had the most because the Army is the biggest. All 3 of us speakers tonight are Air Force veterans. It's neat to know that we are represented very well. Next slide. So all veterans who participated in the screening were referred to a dentist in LaPorte County for follow-up treatment. They would do cleanings, fillings, and extractions if needed at no cost. Estimated value of the clinical exam day was probably about $25,000. Treatment value coming up was going to be $126,000. And that was just our very first outing. Go ahead. I've used South Bend's dental clinic several times. Matter of fact, they have one parallel with mine every 2 years. It's great because they have a 20-chair clinic. We can have more doctors in there. The students get involved with us. Matter of fact, every time we do one, they want to know how soon we can do one again. You know, they'd like to do it yearly. I try to give the doctors a break, but as the need comes, I think we'll continue to serve. I think the clinics in South Bend, Indiana, and the clinics in Gary, Indiana, have been very appreciative of us coming there. And obviously the veterans are getting a good shake, but the givers, again, just like Terry said, the givers are receiving more value than the receiver. Next slide. So on my very first Operation Stand Down, we were going to run from 8 till 1. And about 7:30 in the morning, a young patient showed up and he didn't have an appointment. We were just going through our briefing and informing everybody how this was all going to work. And his name is Albert Isbell. Albert was just a nice man. He said his friend had told him about our clinic. He wanted to know if there was still time to get accepted. And I told the girls, bring him in, I'll see him. So I've asked Albert to write a letter, because I did a presentation a couple of years ago. And I asked him to write a letter just about what our project meant to him. I'm going to read it to you. My name is Albert Isbell. I'm 72 years young. I served in the military from, I can't see the numbers. I served over 2 overseas tours. One was South Korea and the other was Vietnam. Tours were a learning experience for me. After a few years, I had health problems mentally and physically. To make a long story short, I experienced oral problems, teeth loss, plus other issues. When I heard about the Stand Down project that appeared in the News Dispatch paper, a friend of mine read it and asked me to investigate it. I didn't think much of it because veterans were having a hard time readjusting to life. When it came to my health issues, my friend, and especially when it came to my health issues, my friend insisted that I check this out. To my surprise, as a Black male person, I was well received and treated with the uttermost respect. I attended the opening events and was the first attendee in line for the love that was shown and received. I received dental help from Dr. Dan Freed and his company of assistants and team, who instructed me in how to obtain financial help to get the equipment for our dental work, which he found was all donated. He says, now I can smile with the rest of them. Albert is a neat guy. He's the chaplain for a local community police department. He doesn't make hardly any money. After 30 years service, they finally gave him a uniform. Albert is still my patient today. I think I have a picture of him coming up. Next slide. I guess we lost the picture of Albert. All right, so after the first Operation Stand Down, we ran it on Saturday for the screening. We passed out I'll tell you in a minute how we passed out the work. But I received a phone call from the spouse of one of the veterans on Monday morning. And I thought, oh, wow, what did we do wrong? Did we insult somebody? Did we make a bad impression? And the spouse told me, he said, no, Doc, my husband is a different person since you saw him on Saturday. He told me no one's ever done anything for him just because he was a veteran. And so I thought, wow, this is a good thing. I'm not getting a kick in the head. So we've went ahead and I think I told you, two of the other doctors sit down with me and we pass out the charts to the different doctors in the community. And the first year, everybody got 5, or a couple of them got 4. The second time I ran a stand down in our county, I had 45 volunteer doctors. And so it's like, wow, I got more doctors than I can get patients in the screening. And close to 100 patients is about what we could get. So everybody got 2. And that was very well received. Go ahead. Another patient that was very interesting at that most recent screening was an older veteran of Korea, had his home burned to the ground. He lost everything he had. But one of the most dear things he had that he'd lost was his Purple Heart. And through my connections in Washington, I was able to get another Purple Heart and present it to him. And he's had quite a bit of work with me, but he's super appreciative, and he wears that Purple Heart almost every time he comes into the office. And it's been a bonding with just a great guy that's served our country. Next slide. Now, the regent who was in charge when I became inducted into the college, as he walked down the hallway with me, he told me, Dan, you're going to do something great for the college. I had no idea what he meant. But here I am today, president-elect. It's been a great ride. David and I have become really good friends. He's a poet as well as a doctor. He's retired in Florida, but his poem was published with my first article about Operation Stand Down. And I, just out of honor to David, I'd like to read that to you. Granted as black as the smoke of war, a name to touch and cry, an epitaph of sacrifice, and still the question, why? Homage paid in special ways, a rose, a note, a sigh, frustration wrought with anger. The fate chose these to die. They never asked for glory, just gave a grave of homeland sod. They gave their lives for country. Now they answered but to God. Could tears but wash away the pain and heal a nation's scar, that men may find a better way than futile acts of war. Pray their death was not in vain, a lesson to recall, a future world without the need of names upon a wall. So thank you, David, for that inspiring poem. Next slide. So how do I reach veterans? I place posters in the VFWs and the Legions. I put posters in the back of churches. I talk with the veteran service officer. He has a bunch of my flyers and posters, but we're trying to have new ways. We have to think out of the box. So last time out, we tried to email all the leaders of the veteran service organization, or veteran organization, VFWs and Legions. That didn't work out as good as I thought. We've ran newspaper articles. We have some veteran or some radio publicity. All the publicity I get is free because we're doing a community service. So I just need some other ideas on how to reach those people. But I think that every time out, there's a new group that comes out with new problems. Go ahead. So again, I've gotten a lot of free publicity out of this, which I didn't need, but being the leader, they got to have somebody to take a picture of. And, it's like I said earlier, if not me, who's going to do it? So this caption is, what can I do? What can I do to help these veterans? Next slide. So we're serving those who served. Some gave some gave all. And these veterans who are back here now, some of them have PTSD, some of them have injuries that are lifetime crippling injuries. I think that these people really need a hand up. And we've been given a skill set that we can provide the service and a humanitarian attitude, and we have a group of veterans who need us. So it's like a perfect storm. We can provide the service. We have the receivers. It's a win-win for all of us. Next slide. So just another slide, serving those who served. Next slide. So I told you I'd created an Operation Stand Down startup manual. And in this packet, you've got startup manual instructions, sample documents and event forms, sample posters, stand-up article from the journal, Indiana Dental Journal in 2013. I've also got a timeline for how you can organize one. The biggest thing you're going to do is try to find a leader in your community. Next slide. Okay, back up one. So finding the leader is the most difficult thing to do. Someone who's willing to say, I'll chair this project. And it's about a 2-month timeline to get an Operation Stand Down running. Finding the volunteers, once you show them what they're going to do and how they're going to benefit their neighbor and their friend, they're going to sign up. Finding the volunteers in the community is even easier. I've asked for about 40 volunteers to help park cars, help open the doors, help manage the little refreshments at the end, take health histories, usher patients through the clinic. So for a 5-chair clinic, about 40 volunteers makes it all work. The last 2 times out, I've had many more than 40 volunteers, and I've had to turn them away. And I've promised to call them the next time because it's something they found is really valuable, and that's something they want to do. Next slide. So, thoughts on other dental programs. As a vice president last year, I ran a survey of all the regions in the ICD. And I found out that, 14 replied to me, and I'm sure the other 3 are doing something, but I found out there are a lot of other dental programs out there for veterans. Michigan does Victors for veterans. We have a lot of private offices in this area that just do a day, they dedicate a day to veterans. I know of 2 dental school programs, both at St. Louis and New York, but I'm sure there are other ones. We have Veterans Care Coalition Program, and there's another one called Everyone for Veterans. Through ICD, we've been endorsed Everyone for Veterans, E4V, and we've authorized Operation Stand Down, or endorsed, which is pretty powerful because I've seen my program start up in almost every state. So it's very easy to start. Anyone who's interested, please contact me or get the information through the ICD, through the website. Next slide. I was privileged to attend the first Veterans Summit program at the ADA. And it's called Give Veterans a Smile. And there were 75 participants, about 50 doctors and about 25 government officials. They told us what the problem is. We knew what the problem was. There are veterans who are not being served. Only 8% of the veterans coming out are getting any kind of dental care. So that leaves 92% for us to figure out a way to take care of them. I made a lot of connections. I made a lot of friends at this meeting. I'm trying to find out ways we can all work together. I think what we can do is somehow create a national data bank of all the programs that are going, so that anyone in a community who has need for help for veterans, a veteran service officer or just a private doctor can contact the national data bank and get a referral to a close project, whether it's a VA center, but they really don't have much. I'm going to start working with VA centers to get referrals to Operation Stand Down. I personally, as the president-elect, have been contacted by the veterans with paralysis, and I think we can make a connection with them and provide the service they need, and they seem very excited to work with us. Next slide. So again, thank you very much for the honor of being able to present tonight. My contact information is here on the slide. Please send me a message. If you're calling me, please leave me a message. I don't always answer the phone, but through the International College, they will get information to me very quickly. So thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you tonight.
Dr. Freed, thank you very much. A couple of things. I think he's a perfect example of seeing a need in the community and then taking the initiative to fill that need. And not only him, but just think of all the people he has brought along with him on the ride, not just in Indiana, but as he suggested, all around the country. And it actually poses two questions. If not me, who? And if not now, when? And I think that's something all of us, and I know a lot of the people who are listening tonight, thank you for the 50 or so of you who are here, but I think it's something that certainly we can all do. And I just want to take a minute before I introduce Dr. Nichols and just go back and review the mission and vision of the college. I think this is something, we all go through it when we're inducted and all that stuff, but sometimes we just kind of lose sight of it. And the focus of tonight has been service, whether it's local community, right, where he lives and practices, or in Dr. Dickinson's case, in the state of Virginia, where he was working, and then, wherever else. So basically, the ICD is a part of the preeminent honor society of dentists in the world. It recognizes and promotes excellence in leadership, which everybody has demonstrated, with an emphasis on service. And I think that's really the goal of the college, is why we do these things, to help encourage people to do more of it. And I realize a lot of people already do a lot, which is how they get into the college in the first place. But I think this also is helpful. And we provide support to our fellows, and that's exactly what we're doing tonight. And we address the oral needs and education throughout the world, and foster an atmosphere of collaboration with those who share our values. And I think that's the thing. Unfortunately, sometimes we're preaching to the choir, and that's the thing about these types of things. You have people who are interested do this, but how do we get other people up under the tents? Because it's a big tent, and how are we going to do that? And then, of course, the vision of the college is to be the leading honorary dental society. To be the leading honorary dental organization serving others worldwide. And I think both Dr. Freed and Dr. Dickinson have touched on that tonight. We've gotten a bunch of comments, no questions, but basically, for those of you who are following the chat room, basically it's kudos to everybody. And so now Dr. Nichols is on the hot seat to keep it up. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our third panelist. It's Dr. David Nichols, DDS, graduated from the University of Tennessee Dental School. I guess a few years ago, 1969, it says here. So he's been around for a couple of years, and so and served in the Air Force in 1970 and 71. I'm the outlier. Unfortunately, I got my draft number in 1972, so I missed Vietnam and all that stuff, and my life took me in another direction, so I never served. But thanks to the three of you, practiced general dentistry in Tyler, Texas, for the last 50 years. Has traveled to Belize and Guatemala over 70 times since 1977, leading medical dental mission teams, first with Amigos Internationals, and then with his own 501c3 Tejas Missions Incorporated. He founded and volunteered at the Bethesda Dental Clinic, which was begun in 2004. And now and he wrote this, so I can say it, now at 78, he is still a young 78, no question about that. He is semi-retired, but still working part-time at the Bethesda Health Clinic and traveling to the Texas-Mexican border to treat migrants. And so again, another one of the pioneers. You know, when I started going to the Dominican in 1982, I had no way of accessing information from other experienced hands. And so I made all the mistakes myself. And so I think all of us, as we did, made all the mistakes ourselves. But now we have you know, a great lineup of people who can help those of you who haven't done this to get started. So, Dr. Nichols, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Serio. I have a lot in common with Dr. Serio because going to Belize was where I got most of my experience. And that started in 1977. I've been, like he said, over 70 times. And we were on a panel together in 1997, Dr. Serio, if you remember this, with two other people talking about volunteer work in foreign countries. That gave me a lot of experience. I must tell you this as a start, that having experienced that helped me with the local charity clinics in Tyler, where I live. When I moved to Tyler in 1972 as a young dentist, the leaders in the dental society there came to me and said, young man, if you want to be a member of our society, you have to give at least 2 half days a week to the charity clinic downtown that the Kiwanis Club sponsors. I said, yes, sir. I thought he was serious. And so I went down there, and next thing you know, I liked it. The next thing you know, my dental assistant, we took off the afternoon. We went down there so she could go every Wednesday and start changing the cold sterilization every week instead of once a month. Now, I'm saying that as a joke because you can see back in those days, that's how it started. From that point forward, a physician came to me and said, David, you've been doing this charity work downtown. You need to go on a foreign mission trip. So he invited me to go with his medical team to Belize in 1977. That was the beginning of, 3 years later, I was doing my own leadership, and that was the beginning of going there every year for the last 45 years. Now I still do that. We'll be going back. Matter of fact, what's fun about this is one of the person who chatted in a while ago, Dr. Barker, is a oral maxillofacial surgeon here in Tyler, very well thought of, excellent in every way. He has been, Dr. Dickinson will know, he has helped do the TMOM from the time he went through dental school, in medical school, as he worked his way through doing general dentistry in Lubbock, Texas at Texas Tech. He also helped put on TMOMs all over the state of Texas. So I got to help take him to Belize in his when he was at Texas A&M, and it stuck with him. So my comment to everybody listening tonight is, if you have the opportunity and someone comes to you and says, would you like to go with me and do this, whether it's domestic or foreign, take a chance and do it. Because like Dr. Dickinson said a while ago, and Dr. Freed also, it changes our lives. Now, having said that, when I was on the board of directors of the Texas Dental Association, a good friend of Dr. Dickinson came up to me. He remembers her, Sandy Blum. And Sandy said, Dr. Nichols, you're just spending all your time going to Central America. You need to do something here in America. It says, you need to go meet Dr. Dickinson up in up in Virginia. He had just done his first mom. The TDA sent me there. I came back after loving being with Dr. Dickinson and Stan Brock and all the rest of them, and watching it and being so impressed, watch them do dentistry out of the back of a pickup truck and so forth, because that's what I was doing in Belize. You didn't have x-rays in Belize. You were working on Indians, and if you couldn't do it, nobody could do it. So you learned how to become a better dentist by being a volunteer. That's what happened in my life. So then I go watch the mom come back. We put our first mom on. Dr. Dickinson flew from Virginia to Tyler to help me do it. Praise God, because I needed a lot of help. Anyway, we put it on. When we drove out there that morning, I'm like him. I didn't know if anybody's going to show up. We just handed out flyers around town in Tyler. 1,500 were parked out in the parking lot. This was out in the rural part of town. I think it was the second one, we had so many people coming. We took a picture of Interstate 20 where the exit was to come to the Mom Project, and the traffic was almost at a stop on the interstate. So many people were coming. We had 2,000 show up then. They brought their coolers with beer and Cokes, and they brought their cooker grills, and they'd spend 2 nights ahead of time. That is the success of the mom that came to Texas that Dr. I have a hard time saying his name, Dr. Dickinson helped me do, and I was chaired of 10 of them. I've been working with them up until COVID stopped us recently. We'll start back again probably. I had to tell you that about the mom part of it. My passion right now is going to the border. I'm going down to the Texas-Mexican border, and that is to see those migrants come over. It's a little bit like what's happening in the Ukraine right now. Women and children showing up after walking through the Mexico desert for 2 weeks and end up there. We don't do much dentistry. We just do a lot of other things to help them. But we set up a clinic across in the Texas side and do dentistry, and we have plenty to do. It's just you can find the need everywhere you go. And that's what I'm discovering. Now I'm loving working with the clinic in Tyler. So I want to take everybody that's listening now to follow with us. I don't have a lot of slides. I do have a cookbook recipe though. If you think, I'd like to have a clinic in my hometown. If it's over 20,000 people, that could be any size really. But if Tyler's about 120,000 now, and it's busy. We see over 500 patients a month in our charity clinic. And I will tell you that how that clinic got started was Dr. Dickinson was in the car with me as we came back from our second or third, we call them T-Moms, Texas Mission of Mercy. As we were driving back to the hotel, I said, gosh, we can't keep doing this. He said, you're going to have a clinic. You've got to have a clinic in your hometown. You have to have a clinic that sees people who can't get it otherwise. And so there it is. Dr. Dickinson got a hold of my brain. And they just started a medical clinic without anything with dentistry. And I went and talked to the medical doctor there who's in charge. He said, well, if you can figure out how to get some money together, we'll figure out how to do it. Then I go to Sunday school and some guy says, I gave you some money for your mission trips. What about here? I thought, God must send him to me. I said, I need at least $30,000. He said, oh, my secretary called you tomorrow and sent me $28,000. That's how you can get money to get things started. You just don't realize you don't have to be trained. You don't have to be somebody special. There's people that have the need, and there are people who will help you provide the need. Next slide. Let's go see where we go from here. I've put this slide on here because this pretty lady down here on the left is Anita, and Anita lives here. And Anita came into my Sunday school class one day as someone brought her there because she's just graduating from her drug addiction recovery home. The state had taken away her child. She had been on drugs for a long time. Her life was ruined in so many ways, but she was making her way back. I looked at her and I couldn't believe her teeth looked horrible. I don't have a before picture here, but they'd all write it out. She'd been on methamphetamine for several years. And the deal is that I said, we got to go down to the Bethesda clinic. Well, they wrote her up because she was such a success, Kate. It changed her life. Before, my smile was dark and decayed, just like my spirit. But now I have been born on the inside. This is not a religious statement she's saying. This is where she had her life changed in such a way. My smile shows that to the world, and I have Bethesda to thank for that. For so long, Anita was defined by her teeth. They were a walking billboard for her history. Anyone who looked at her mouth knew she had been a drug user. What I want to tell you is, I tell you this right now, we have 5 recovery homes in our area. One for sex trafficking over in Kilgore. Those are women that have been in prostitution and quote, exotic dancing and so forth, and had their children taken away, many of them. They've been on drugs. They had this wonderful home over there. We give them a day a year. We have another one, and Dr. Freed's gonna love this. Camp V is our veterans charitable organization here, and we've started that. And I will tell you that when one young man came in, I was blessed to get to be the one to do his dentistry. And I ended up doing a lot of composites to make his front teeth look good. And I took out 3 abscess teeth, and we worked him over good. He didn't look good when he came in. His teeth looked terrible, but he didn't look good either. And so, but after it was over with, we followed him a little bit. The next thing we know, he volunteered to come to our fundraiser, which was done at the country club. He showed up. He got up on the stage. I got a lot of glory out of it because he praised me and Bethesda Clinic for what had changed his life. His fiance was there with him. He didn't even look like the same person. He was so handsome, and he helped raise himself at least $30,000. And we raised over 100 that night. But he himself, people were so impressed with what the local clinic had done for his life. Next slide. Am I doing okay? Let's go. Now that's what our clinic looks like now. It started out not quite that nice, but we've had so much success at the Bethesda Health Clinic in Tyler, Texas, that now it's grown and grown, and we're getting ready to remodel again. And so it was primarily medical. Now it's medical dental, and dental is one of the main parts of this clinic. Next one. Next slide. When we come inside the clinic, you come in, there's a reception area, there's dental on one side, medical on the other side. The medical is a huge thing. We have several physicians and physician's assistants that work there, practitioners that work there. We have 2 full-time paid dentists that work there, and then we have volunteer dentists. We come in, they get their checkup. Like we have to have bilingual, you can imagine, here in Texas, but probably in many of y'all watching tonight have it in your community also. So we have to have bilingual there to help do that. They have qualified. They don't just show up. They have to be qualified because it's mainly for the working poor. Although we have these clinics for 5 different groups, people who just come out of prison, women who've lost their children. I can tell you a lot of stories. That's one of the main things. My wife was very helpful on the board of directors of one of those organizations to bring those women over, and then bring the men who've been in prison over, whose mouths are ruined, as you know. They get to come here. We raise the money to pay $100 a person, and we do $1,000 worth of work on each person. So that's a pretty good deal. Other people qualify like you do at a charity clinic, and they have to be prepared to show their income level to be able to qualify. And then there is a charge. Next slide. Although we do a lot of scholarships. That's what our clinic looks like inside. So you can tell it's very modern. ADAC gives you a good deal for charity clinics. And we have 5 operatories, and we have 2 hygiene rooms, and we have the Panorex, and we've got digital x-ray, and we've got just about everything that you need to run a wonderful clinic. Next slide. By the way, I got to mention that while you look at the hygiene room there, there was a lady, and we won't mention her name, but there was a lady who was listening to a conversation saying, how's that clinic doing? Because it just had 2 old chairs and 1 x-ray head. And, we just barely were able to have enough equipment to do it, but we were doing pretty good with it, seeing patients 2 days a week. They want to advance it. She said, well, what did it cost? And so this lady was eating with her, said, I think my husband said it would cost $100,000 at least. She wrote a check out for $100,000. There are people who are touched by what we do, and we don't need to forget that. They want to serve also by giving their money. And so that's something that everybody, all of us who are doing these things need to remember. Next slide. And the veterans really brought it in too. There's one of our young dentists who's not been out of dental school very long, and he's just working there part-time. We pay him like $60 an hour. You say, well, that's not very much. But when you're just getting started, you're right out of dental school, you're buying into someone's practice. He's doing that with a very fine dentist in Tyler. So he works there like 3 or 4 days a week, and he works down here a day or so a week. And we have several that do that, and we can afford to pay because the community supports us. There's no government programs. It's all donations, working, a lot of it's working through the churches. Next slide. Got a nice, you can see we have wonderful equipment there. That's the sterilization room. Keep going. Next slide. And we've got what looks like some labs in some place. We're getting ready to modernize our lab. We just talked about it today. A lady came that's retired from her lab tech business, and she is going to volunteer 1 day a week. And we're going to be able to start doing dentures because we have someone who can process them. We had to stop doing dentures because we were getting rushed by them. And you know what that means. Doing a denture is a big deal and costs money. But we are now able to work that out with a laboratory technician that's going to give her time free, just like we give our time free. And then we're going to get a good deal getting them processed. We're really looking forward to that part of it. Next slide. And I'll show you an example of it in just a minute. Now, that's one of my favorite slides because Dr. Dickinson was working with Dr. Worsham, Dr. Deborah Worsham. Dr. Deborah Worsham was a young, pretty girl at that time, and Dr. Dickinson was her assistant at a Mission of Mercy in Tyler. Well, Dr. Deborah Worsham just left being the TDA president, and she is just one of the best organized industry persons we have. But Dr. Dickinson was one of those people who helped encourage her along. We can be mentors to people. Don't forget that. Next slide. I showed you this slide because that's what this is. I have thousands of slides, as you might imagine, from my trips to Belize, but I learned how to do dentistry without modern equipment. And we had to go to a place where we couldn't take a compressor. We couldn't have any electricity. And this woman came in with 3 abscess teeth. That's what she came for. Well, I got the teeth out after I did the fillings, but I didn't have any equipment. I did have a Dremel tool. Any of y'all work with Dremel tools? You can comment on your chat if you want to. But that Dremel tool had a light at the end of it. You can put a number 4 round burr on the end of it. But did you know that's about the way I learned how to do dentistry my second year of dental school, because we didn't even have high speed except for the seniors. And you can find ways to do beautiful work in some unusual ways. And that's what, if you're the only guy in town, like back in the bush, in the jungles of Belize and Guatemala, that's a pretty good tool right there. Next slide. I want to show you this slide and just look at it for a minute, okay? This woman also came to my church one night. We were raising money for the home she was in, and she came up and talked to me, and I looked at her. This slide that you're looking at on the left that I'm looking at coming out at you, she had some parts of all 32 teeth. I've never seen that before. Broken off, decayed, probably 10 of them abscessed at least. And look at her eyes. I want everybody watching right now to look at her eyes, because this is just a picture of her and what she looked like. And I thought, golly, this one, she was in the new home. She was getting clean, hadn't been on drugs in 6 months. And I told her, I said, I'll help you, but you got to promise to stay clean. And I don't want you sleeping around. Excuse for me saying that, but I was really rough on her, because I said, what I'm going to do for you is going to make you look so beautiful, everybody's going to chase you. And she kind of laughed at me. Well, the one on the right over there is when we finished her. And look at her eyes in that one. Just look at the eyes and know that taking care of someone's teeth like this, she had no hope to get a job, to do anything unless she got her teeth fixed. And look at her eyes. She's now a successful woman. I've followed her for 5 years now, and she's doing great. And she's had her first child, I think it is, or maybe her first child after she lost one before. Next slide. You may have that off. Okay, I want to show you this slide because I saw him today. This is exactly 1 week and 1 day after he looked like that before over there. 1 week and a day ago, he came to my Sunday school class. My Sunday school class is a place where people come to figure out how to get to teeth. And they said, do we have any prayer requests? And he's sitting in the back row back there. He goes to a recovery home also for drug addiction. He said, I'm praying for some teeth because I think I can get a job if I get my teeth fixed. I've been told they wouldn't hire me unless I could do something about these teeth. Boy, he had some bad infection and he had tore eye. And I thought, oh man, I needed Dr. Barker, the oral surgeon, to come help me do it. But it was one of those things I had to do it or don't do it. So what do you think I did? I gutted up and took out all 14 teeth and sutured him up, took off his tore eye. I'm bragging now, as y'all can tell. And then the picture you see there was the same a week later, but he looked just about like that when I put his dentures in. He came in today. Yes, I had to adjust his dentures. Yes, he is so happy. He is thrilled to death. His life has changed. He now is going out next week to apply for the job. There is so much all of us, no matter what our experience level is, can do to change people's lives. As you can tell by my passion and enthusiasm, it's changed my life. So I look forward to it. Next slide. And there's Dr. Holland, who works with me down at the Bethesda Clinic. That's just so typical of a woman who came in who just needed help. And And that's the way they feel about it. If you ever thought about being appreciated, I get tired of going to the dentist. My paying patients say, oh, I hate dentists. I hate to come here. These people don't ever say that. They're so glad to see us. Next slide. And that's what it looks like to take. That's one of those recovery groups that came and they're just expressing their gratitude to us after we've worked on them to give them free care. What I do is raise money from the Rotary Club, from churches to help pay for it. Because we need to pay the clinic some money when you're really doing $10,000 worth of work on them. And we also have to pay assistance. We get volunteer assistance, but that's not a guarantee. And somebody's got to know where the equipment is. A lot of the volunteers don't, of course. So you need paid staff and volunteer staff to really get a good clinic going. Next slide. Down at the border, that is one thing I'm really enjoying. You can see me on the left playing with kids that are makeshift school. That's over in Reynosa, Mexico. They've been rejected and turned back. The wall is there. It's not being built. The people down there want it built. That's my political statement. I've learned how to take equipment and we don't have an autoclave, but Dr. Barker taught me if you wash them good, wipe them good, cold sterilize them for 5 or 10 minutes, they're good. So that's what we use, and we do fillings and restorations and extractions primarily, and cleaning teeth. Next slide. There we are, just showing you what it's like to work on the border. Next slide. And there we are back at the clinic. I want to take you through in just about 5 minutes a cookbook recipe of how to do a clinic at home, okay? So just follow with me for about 5 minutes or something like that. And we're going to see a cookbook recipe. By the way, the dental assistants love this as much as we do. Some of these are from the community college, Tyler Junior College. We go ahead and get there in 1 year to second year of 1 year of dental assisting study, and they are so pleased to come help. And they don't have to know a lot to help us. Next. Okay, that's down there with all my girlfriends in Reynosa, Mexico. Next slide. You like to have a lot of dental assistants when you work. Look here how we can do this. Now follow with me, and please don't let me go over time. First thing is a need. There are some places in the world there's not a need. Maybe you can think of them. But if you're living where I'm living, in most places like Dr. Freed have told you and Dr. Dickinson have told you, the need is huge, and they're hiding. They're silent out there. But if you let the word out, knowing that they can come and not be embarrassed and not have their pocketbook taken away, they'll show up. So you have to have a need, and then just like the Mission of Mercy, you have to have a location. Well, just like a clinic. And I can tell you that's when we went down to that health clinic and I said, let's do it. We did it. It didn't take long for the people to say, I'm going to that clinic. You need to have a committed dentist. You have to have somebody that sounds like me talking right now. Do you follow me? You've got to have somebody, and Dr. Freed's that way, and Dr. Dickens that way, and I bet you half the people or more watching right now that way. Someone who says, I'm going to do this. And you're going to stick it through. You're not going to try it for a year. Supportive Dental Society, that's very important. The ICD getting involved. All those things mean a lot when you're doing a dental clinic in your area. And service organizations like Rotary Club and Kiwanis Club and so forth. Those things are very helpful. They've been helpful in mine. Service above self is the motto for the Rotary Club that I belonged to for 37 years. By the way, belonging to a club like that, good idea. Next thing you know, you got a supporter. A little vision is important. Some people watching don't need to do it the way I've done it, meaning me and the people have helped me do it. You can have your own vision, make your decisions, find your financial support, and go into action. Next slide. Most of these start with volunteers like we're talking about today. Eventually, you'll end up having to pay some people, but that's good because you want something that's going to be predictable, sustainable, and so forth. So you start out with dentists, assistants, hygienists, volunteers, and then it progresses as time goes along. It progresses to paid staff and paid dentists, and the demand grows. That's possible for any community to do that. Dr. Rosas, what's his name out in El Paso? He was with the American Dental Association and from Mexico, but he practiced in El Paso. They poured across the border to pay him 3 times what it cost in Mexico because he was such a great dentist and a person who gave. He ended up starting a clinic in El Paso that is wonderful, and I learned a lot from him. Number 5, establish charges to the patient. You have to figure out how to charge them. That's not easy because you give a lot of it free, but there are places where they'll come in there if they don't have insurance, obviously. They don't make over $40,000 a year. That's what you kind of cap off at if they've got family, and you start helping find out what you can charge them. Next slide. You need to be a part of a 501c3. That makes only sense. You've got to do that. So if you are starting a clinic, I'm going to tell you, somebody listening to me right now can start a clinic. I think if you've had some experience with the mom, if you've had some experience with overseas across the border, all of those things are very helpful. Or maybe you just volunteered at what's already available nearby. But you don't need a lot of experience. You just need to have the passion to want to do it, and then start finding people to help you. You got to have an organization. You can go to where there is one, or you can organize one. It can be done. I've organized my own organization. So a guy told me one time, if you want to get money to help you, you're going to have a 501c3. So got me an attorney, got me a 501c3. Now you can get money coming in to help you. Involve the community, churches, service organizations, the community health department. All of those are necessary. You need to have the churches, the service organizations, and the community health department. You can't believe how the community, we listed all of our, Dr. Dickinson, remember seeing this, a list of all of our volunteer supporters. We had 42 listed by the time we listed them all. Didn't have to buy any food. The restaurants give you free food. If you think they won't do it, you just haven't got them under their skin. You got to hire somebody that knows how to threaten them. And I did that. Setting up the clinic, location, and equipment. You remember, you've got to have a location and you got to have some equipment. I drove an 18-wheeler. I didn't drive it. We borrowed an 18-wheeler and drove it around Texas for our first T-Mom, we called it. And we had 30 chairs. Then we got some piddly chairs for the hygienist. And we did the best we could with just old equipment. It worked. We had 30 dentists working that gymnasium that day. And Dr. Dickinson will tell you, it was a good success. Keep going. We're about down to the end of some of this. Setting up a clinic. I want somebody out there that's listening right now to want to set up a clinic in your hometown or near your hometown, or just help somebody who already has a clinic. You sometimes have to start with used equipment. We find dentists that are retiring, and if they've retired, they've got equipment they'll get rid of for not very much. And so we started our first clinic with $30,000 worth of, and we bought some new stuff. You've got to you need Patterson or Shine or somebody that you're working with to be on board with you and know that they'll be friends. If they'll give you good deals, you'll be nice to them, and you need them to help you put stuff together. You know that. Personnel, committed people, not somebody that's just trying it out. You do that. We get people that just come for one time, but I've discovered that if you're going to have success, you'd be looking for people who have a little bit of passion to serve. Learn from similar clinics, already successful. We started our clinic in Tyler from going to Memphis, Tennessee, and see the clinic they had there. It was wonderful. We have also looked at one in San Antonio. There are clinics all over that are already successful. So if you're wanting to do one, you can find one and you can copy it, and then you can improve on it or change things. Next one. We might get down to the end here in a minute. You got to determine the fees. It's about a third of the market fees. If somebody charges $200 to take a tooth out, we might charge $60. And the people, and that makes a difference to people who are really, with inflation going on and everything else, I'm telling you, people count every dollar. Extractions, fillings, hygiene, perio, removable. You can have all kind of people work with you with your clinic, and you do what you can afford to do. But again, learn what the other clinics are doing. Financial support can grow as treatment demands increase. It'll be necessary to establish salaries for doctors and assistants. Yes, we pay over $130,000 for a salary. That isn't very much, but some people are willing to do that when they're near retirement. Some people are willing to do that when they're right out of school. So either way, that works good. And so we pay by the hour, and we pay and give benefits and all that. Most clinics will do that, but you can't sustain one on just volunteer force. That starts you, but you got to be able to get a whole organization together. Next slide. Most important thing I wrote down here was whoever's listening right now needs to say, I think you're talking to me. I think you're talking to me. It takes one individual to start it. Whether you're volunteered or become paid, has to have a passion to get it started and see it through. Don't quit. So that's what I want to say. Some of you listening right now, can step up and do this. Challenge yourself. The reward is great. Those who have done this before will be valuable advisors. You can go and get help from people. Next slide. I'm going to tell you what you can do. Next slide. You can call me on the phone. That's my web address, and that's my telephone number, my cell phone number. I don't care if you call me. I like people to call me because I'm sort of got some time on my hand right now. And I'm semi-retired and I'm loving what I'm doing. And so if you want some help from me, you feel free to call me. That's all I've had to say. I'm going to turn it off now. I don't know whether I ended near time or not, but we have some opportunities for questions now. Okay, Dr. Serio?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Nichols. I want to thank all three of you for bringing your experiences to the group. And I think there are 54 people who have the total who have joined us. And so I have just a couple of comments. There really haven't been any questions because you guys have been pretty good about covering your particular areas. But I think there's one thing, you know, everybody talked about having committed people, and there's no question about that. Whether it's the Mom projects, whether it's Operation Stand Down, whether it's the Bethesda Clinic, people, you know, these become personal, and they are committed. You can't do this by committee. You can't do this just institutionally. Dr. Nichols mentioned about setting up a foundation of 501c3 nonprofit. One other way, I've been doing this for 40 years, and I have never started a 501c3. Why? Because I don't want to fool with the IRS, to be honest. I just never did. So what I have done is I've developed relationships with community foundations where I live. Right now, we have a pass-through account with the Community Foundation of NC East, which basically all the donations are legitimate 501c3 eligible donations. But then all I do is I pay a service fee every year. It's not a problem. As part of that, I ended up being the president of the foundation for a couple of years. And so that was just an added benefit of being that. One other thing I want to say is that we tend, if you looked at the pictures and you looked at the volunteers, we tend to be working with people who are more seasoned clinicians. But I think part of what we need to do is reach out to the younger docs and also to the students. I will tell you, in my experience, I've been taking students on our project since 1983. And it really has helped because some of those students graduated and have been coming back with us. Others, I call them the Dominican Project alumni, have gone on to run their own projects all over the place, whether in the US or overseas. So make sure that you try to bring young folks. You know, T. Bob Davis, who's also a great Texan dentist, you know, he does a lot of work with students from Baylor College of Dentistry. And so, you know, I think part of, we talk about, tonight we're talking about the fellows, but certainly something like this could be shared with the schools because the ICD is visible in the schools on the white coat ceremonies and other ways. But I think these are the kinds of things that there would be some students who would be interested in doing this kind of thing. The other thing I just want to mention, and Dr. Nichols, you talked about the costs of things, and we have these clinics. In some communities, like Mom, as Dr. Dickinson will be the first to say, Mom is a stopgap. It is not the answer. And you know, to see that many people come to a Mom clinic says, okay, what's missing from America to make, you know, that this is the demand, that this is the need. But the reality is some people go to the dentist, some people don't go to the dentist. And cost has very little to do with it in many cases. It has to do with education, attitude, personal values, those kinds of things. But what I'm mentioning, and everybody can chime in here. And I saw everybody's lighting up. That's good. But remember, in some communities, there are federally qualified health centers, and I happen to work in one, that provide care at lower fees if you qualify based on a federally developed sliding fee scale. Not every community has them. I happen to have been employed by one for the last 7.5 years. And at least we've been fortunate in ours that we do everything for our patients. And basically anybody can come to our clinic, even patients who have dental insurance, not Medicare, I'm talking about regular dental insurance and all that. But for some of you say, we can't help you here, but maybe there is some sort of clinic, not just like I'll call them semi-volunteer clinics like Dr. Nichols has, because you have paid people, but you also have volunteers. But clinics like ours we're just a practice that runs. So, and the last thing I just want to mention to everybody is we talk about donor fatigue and volunteer fatigue. And I think mom has had, certainly in North Carolina, mom has felt the volunteer fatigue, surely, because and Terry will tell you, it's the same faces
Yep.
that show up all the time. And all you guys, because volunteers got bobbing heads everywhere. But it is. So how do we get the younger people, and whether it's affiliating with dental schools? And I know that's a challenge right now. I've got challenges, to get students from the University of Maryland to go with us this summer. There's bureaucracy that has to be dealt with. And so, but you figure out how to deal with it. And then you can take the students with you. But it's you plant the seeds early. And how can we as fellows of the college plant the seeds early? And I can speak for myself, but the seeds for me were planted when I was a kid. My parents were both big into service. And so it was just part of the deal. But how do we get younger people as well as older people, or people who are just sitting on the sidelines? It's easy to sit on the sidelines and kvetch about stuff, but how do you get people into the game? And I'm going to open it up to the three of you, because it's things I think, even though many of the people who are listening tonight are veterans of what we do, I think having a little bit of a discussion, and if anybody wants to chime in in the chat room, let us know. Okay, go ahead. I'm
So,
over.
First of all, I do want to have a disclaimer. Being from West Texas, we don't talk like that boy from East Texas.
Sorry about
Right.
that.
But I love you, brother. One of the things that I think really do well in Virginia is the work with and the relationship we have with VCU School of Dentistry. They have been a valuable partner with that program. We usually take, for WISE, we'll usually take 50 or 60 dental students, and they're representatives from each of the dental school classes and hygiene. We also get nursing students from the nursing school in Richmond. We get pharmacy students to come and be part. So it's truly, talk about integrating oral healthcare and overall healthcare. It really is, I think we've really created something, because we sit down together and talk about those difficult patients, whether they're on 10 or 15 different pharmaceuticals. We truly have a team that will sit down and talk about the overall health of a patient and come to a conclusion about, one, whether we should treat them and how best to treat them. So it's really valuable to have VCU here in Richmond and have their support through these many years of coming and helping the Mom Project. And so we ask those young men and women, not only to come and help us while they're at school, but ask them to think about, once you get some of those debts paid down, once you have a practice and you got things kind of settled down, you got your house or whatever it is, think about coming back and giving back. And so, because you're so right, Frank, the fatigue we see in our volunteers is true. And we get this 20 or 30% that keep coming back. You can always depend on them. You can always call and they'll be there. But so we try to create this new group of volunteers to come and help. And I think, and then like I say, with the students, to get them to think about, 5 or 10 years or whatever it is, come back, give back.
I like it.
Hang on one second, Dave.
Yeah.
I just want to add one thing to that. I have had people come back every year, right after they graduate, they keep coming back.
Yeah.
Because it is valuable, as we talked about, the value to our lives, sense of purpose, all the things we've touched on tonight. But yeah, you can say, wait till you get established. But I've had volunteers who come back and say, what the heck have I been doing the last 20 years? I could have come back 10 or 15 years ago and I missed those opportunities. So
Right.
I think there are ways we can tell people or guide them, say, yeah, you can still do this, because your practice will always be there. And it's been my experience that, and I know for all of you find the same thing. patients love what we do. And today, I talk about the mission project, just, as we're talking to patients, say, well, when are you guys going? I said, well, we'll be there in a few weeks. And they have gotten it, they say prayers for us and do whatever. But I think we can encourage some of the young ones just to keep coming. They find the time. I have a kid coming back who's in Perio grad school. She came when she was a dental student, and she found the week that she's off, and she'll be meeting us down there in a few weeks. So I think, some of them should be able to, we can help them understand that they can do it all the way through their lives, not just when they are more or less established.
I was just-
I mean, we've got our same group of people that come back year after year, but I've used dental students on Saturday morning screenings, and I've used even pre-dental students on the Saturday morning cleanings. Now they're in the dental practice, but they're ready to come back for the screening. I usually use specialists on the screening because they're not going to provide restorations and extractions. I've got a couple of oral surgeons who will do any extractions that some of the docs don't want to do. But I think getting them started early is good. And I think that I know the kids graduate with a large amount of debt, but learning to give back early, I think, is what we need to do for them.
I tag in on the students part of it. I think we can be creative in how we use our students. Baylor's about a little over 100 miles away from Tyler. So we would get a Greyhound bus, load the bus up, a cooler of iced drinks, stop by the barbecue stands on the way to East Texas, on the way home after you get through, and we'd have them drive over in the morning and drive back late in the afternoon, and they had a party. And so we actually had University of Houston School, we had them completely do the Bethesda clinic one time. We set up chairs, we got a bunch of portable chairs, and they just covered the whole clinic, the medical part and everything. And so we have used students in Tyler, both in the local clinic and in the mom events. And so you're right, getting the students in is very important. That's my contribution.
Any other comments from the group? Anything we've missed? Anything you want to emphasize?
Yeah, I think, again, to the audience, if anybody wants to start a mom project or a Bethesda or an Operation Smile or whatever it is, we're all three, and so many more people are willing to step up and help, because that's what our gift is that we've been there, and we're happy to do that. We're happy to share anything that we have. I know we have a procedure manual like David was talking about, and that we all four of us that have been in the heart of this, in the thick of it, are willing to help in any way that we can to help people find that pathway to whatever model they want.
And Dr. Dickinson, where can they find the procedure manual?
I think it's actually on our website, which is Virginia Dental Foundation, Dental Association Foundation, VDAF.org, O-R-G. And it's on the website. It'll list it as a procedure manual.
Yes, I've been in there and I have seen it. It's great. It
Yep.
really is.
The procedure manual's on the ICD website, and it's available to anyone who wants to use it. And it's applicable to anybody who wants to run a charitable program. It doesn't have to be veterans. It could be any group of people. And I've had a couple other regents ask me and use it for exactly that.
Yeah, so there are resources out there. And that's one of the things I just want to emphasize. For obviously the four of us, there's stuff on the ADA website, the international part of the ADA website, a book that a bunch of us wrote a bunch of years ago on how to run an international volunteer project. Christian Dental Society has, Bob Meyer has written a book on, dental manual and how to run projects. So there are resources everywhere. It's now a question of, is it something you want to do, something you get excited about? And all I will say is that as much work as it has been, we have gotten back multifold for whatever it is we put into it. No question about it. I think all four of us will agree with that sentiment. It is about 8:55 in the East. And so I want to thank all three of you. Certainly kudos to all of you guys. Thank you very much again for answering my phone calls. I do appreciate that. Even Dr. Fried, I know it took a few times for us to get together, but we were able to do it. I appreciate that. But before people leave, you stay to the end. You have to do the survey link, which must be completed to receive your 2 hours of CE credit. And then you will receive a certificate of attendance within 2 weeks by email from the USA section office. So here are the slides you need to see. And as you're looking at this, we've gotten several comments from people thanking all of the presenters for what you've done tonight. Apparently, Dr. Nichols, somebody has an autoclave in their garage with your name on it. Go back into the chat.
We actually use autoclaves now, believe it or not.
Yeah, that's well, just leaving them out in the sun for a couple of days doesn't really work. So anyway, so take a look at that. And then anybody else, any other comments for the good of the order? If not, I also want to take a minute and thank the staff of the ICD. I want to thank Kylie and Paula and the visionaries. I want to personally thank Ira Tatunik, who has basically been my godfather in many respects for doing some of these things, and has shepherded me into a variety of these presentations. And I will mention this when I speak at the meeting at the Greater New York meeting in the fall. But it's interesting. My dad was a dentist, and the first time I showed up at the Greater New York meeting to speak as part of the ICD, it turns out I met a guy named Bob Seminara, and some of you may know him, but Bob is a dentist in Staten Island, and he comes up to me and says, "Thank you very much. I've always wanted to meet you, because if it wasn't for your father, I would never have been a dentist." And I didn't know this guy at all. And it turns out, just the connections, the interconnectivity of all of us is just incredible. And so again, thanks to all three of you guys for spending the time tonight. Thanks for the audience. And then I guess the survey link is coming up, or something's going to happen. I'm not sure exactly what's what. If somebody else wants to chime in, Kylie or Paula, feel free to take over and tell us what we need to do. Okay, the credits. Yeah, Kylie and Paula. And thank you again. Thanks to everybody for their kind words. Yeah, we always try to do our best, and I think we've been very fortunate. Thank you guys for spending a couple of hours of your very busy lives with us. And with that, I say good night until find out where the survey thing is, so you can get your CE credit. Okay.